Let's talk about AI and how it's going to affect your job. There's been a big piece of research about the jobs most at risk from AI and the jobs least negatively impacted by it. If you are, for example, a roofer, if you're a gas compressor, if you're someone who is a floor sander and finisher, if you're a pile drive operator, if you're a dredger, if you are an embalmer, for example, your job is not going to die. If you're a painter, a plasterer, a nursing assistant, a hazardous materials removal worker, you are safe from AI. You will always be needed. There is no issue. However, if you're an interpreter, a translator, a historian, a writer, an author, a telephone operator, a ticket agent, a travel clerk, a broadcast announcer and radio DJ, a concierge, a political scientist, a mathematician, a technical writer, or a business teacher or public relations specialist, it's all going to go a bit Pete Tong for you because AI is going to take over your job. This is research that has been taken, that has been done. And the metrics have been calculated. Let's speak to Mal Fletcher, who's a futurologist and social commentator. Mal, I'm really interested in this, not just because I might be out of a job in 10 years, but also the question, I suppose, is about the education system, about schools and third-level education, the Careers Advisory Service, things like that, preparing the next generation, not just people in jobs at the moment, where they may die out when they retire or may remain for some time, but actually about whether we're preparing young people for jobs that may not exist in 10 years, sending them off to university and saying, stack up your 60 grand of debt for a job that might disappear by the end of your course?
Yeah, I understand what you're getting at, Peter. Thanks for having me, by the way. Look, I think we do need to teach things like digital literacy in schools. People of all ages, in fact, need to be better educated in how data is collected, how it's analysed and used by things like AI. And I think data literacy should go all the way through the school curriculum, right up through university. It would certainly help people to avoid going down the rabbit hole of advanced technologies and being paranoid, essentially, about what they're likely to face because of things like AI. It would help us think more critically and strategically about it too.
I wonder as well about the government, about education departments, you know, on a government level. Do you think there's any real sense of awareness or understanding of this? We've been debating the Online Safety Act. I'm not asking you about that, Mal, necessarily, but certainly it seems that the legislation and the preparation that government puts forward for a lot of these things seems to be hopelessly out of date.
Yeah, it probably is. Governments are more focused at the moment, at least ours is, on attracting innovation and attracting finance for AI, not so much on talking about things like the ethics that should govern the future development of AI. And this is going to be important going forward. We need codes of ethics to guide and perhaps limit research and development of certain types of AI that could, for example, include AI weapons of war. It could be applied to areas of medicine where machines handle very sensitive private data. And those recommended codes of ethics, which should, by the way, draw in debates from many disciplines, ethicists, technologists, philosophers, scientists, educators, many different groups, those must be backed by government regulation. And the future capacity of AI is way too powerful to be left in the hands of big tech leaders who have already shown, I think you'd agree, they're either unable or unwilling to self-regulate. And when they do, it's almost always in favour of profit rather than the common good.
But can governments keep up with the advances in technology? Can they legislate? We've seen the Online Safety Act, for example, taking years to get to the statute books. Some of it's already out of date. The technology is just not understood. The legislation is not going to regulate it properly, is it? Especially when you have global companies who don't care about things like fines of even, you know, £20 million or 10% of their profits.
That may be true, but Peter, we have seen with the area of genetic engineering that limitations do play a role. They do have an effect. It may not wipe out abuses altogether, but it would certainly give some benchmark as to what we're willing as a community to accept and what we don't. And I think one of the challenges we have with the whole AI area is that government needs to understand the difference between human skills and AI skills. And AI skills are changing all the time. Microsoft hasn't done us a great favour with these tabulated results because AI is changing all the time in ways that even its technologists don't understand. They don't understand how it trains itself these days, and they came up with the term deep learning for that. But human beings will always be needed in at least 2 or 3 areas. One of them is empathy. And so we need to be going back to schools, training young people for empathic responding right from an early age. We're always going to need people who understand and relate to human emotion. AI can fake empathy, but we know it's not the real thing. In fact, I was reading yesterday that a recent US study found that 70% of teens have used what we call AI companion apps in place of human friends.
That's right. You know, those have been. I've done stories on that before, and having girlfriends and that are AI, having people who they tell about their problems and so on. It's something I find pretty worrying. Although the loneliness epidemic maybe could help in some way. Mal, thank you. We'll talk again. Mal Fletcher is a social commentator and knows about future. He's a futurologist as well, and an expert in all of these matters.